Hello, everybody. It is I, Elijah Avalon, and welcome back to the channel. This is Mystic Meetings. The series that we all know by now is the show where we talk to spiritual people about spiritual things. However, today's video is going to be something very, very different. We're interviewing our very first person to not identify as a witch. Gasp. Everyone gasp. Collectively. This person is not particularly anything, and that's what makes him the most interesting to me in a spiritual aspect. And that is our guest, Ben, or as I will call him, Benjo. Ben, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. Full disclosure to everyone watching, Ben and I actually know each other IRL. So he has the distinction of being that guest as well. He's the very first person that I actually know in real life. Ben lives, like me, in Florence, Alabama. And we've known each other for, I don't know, X amount of years now, right?
6, 7 years, something like that.
That isn't impossible. Is that true?
Something, I don't know.
Like 2015? 2016? 2014?
2014, 2015, yeah.
God. We're old.
Yep.
You're old. It's dawning on me now. Okay, anyway. So, just so you guys know, that's what's up. So, without ado, let's get started. This interview is going to be completely different because the questions are all completely different, as you know. We ask questions that are all based usually in paganism and witchcraft. Most of those questions are out the window for this interview, so stick around. It's going to be very different. And that leads me to our first question, which is not the first question that has been the first question in every single video to this point. So, our first question now for you, Ben, is, Are you a spiritual person?
In a ways, I want to be spiritual, but I don't know what is actually out there.
Yeah.
So,
do any of us? Like, oh, God. Are you a religious person?
Sorry, I had to mute there. I had to cough. But in a religious way, like for most people, they would say I am not, because I do not go to any kind of church. I do not follow any certain type of religion. And it's like, they're like, well, do you do anything like with people religiously? I have gone to my grandparents' church who are Episcopalian, but I haven't done that in a long time. I'm just like, you know what? This ain't for me.
Yeah.
So I just live my life.
So were you raised religiously as a child?
I went to Episcopal when I was born, and I was christened Episcopal. Then later on in life, I was forced to go to a Church of Christ. Like, when I say, I mean, like, it's true. Like, I was forced to go to a Church of Christ. Like, this person was like, you have to go here. I was like, this isn't for me. And when I tried to venture out, he was like, no, you can't do that. I'm like, why not? So.
Yep. Viewers of the channel know by now, I was raised Church of Christ and raised really strictly Church of Christ. I feel that. I feel that hard. Would you say that as a child you did believe in God or no? And if so, do you still believe in God? And when I say God, I mean God with a capital G, specifically the Christian God.
When I was real young, yes, I did. And then growing up, I'm like, well, where's the actual proof to me? Like, I'm not downing any religion. Like, I mean, your viewers probably know that by now, but like, you don't diss any religion, but like, I don't down any religion. You do you. But as I got older, I'm like, a bunch of personal stuff happened to me. I'm just like, there was no God there for me. So I'm like, he doesn't exist to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that as kids, we're taught, even if we don't go to church, I think we're taught by the people around us and just by like the culture at large, especially in the South, that God is a certain kind of thing and acts in a certain kind of way. And when we don't experience that ourselves, it makes us cast doubt on everyone that's ever told us anything about God. Suddenly you're like, are you delusional? Like, none of that is true for me. So therefore it's not true. Do you think that, and this is where we're going to get a little like weird and philosophical, but do you think that some things can be true for one person and not true for another person in terms of spirituality or religion?
I agree with you 100% because my grandparents are always like, well, pray up to God and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, I don't believe in that. And they're like, well, he works for us like in so many ways. So yes, like it can work for some people, but it just hasn't for me. So I'm just here.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that brings in a wider debate of like what is real and what is not real. Like, how much
Mm,
does just the power of our mind influence our lives and dictate our belief in God? Is God actually just the power of like positive thinking? Or is God
right.
actually an external force in the universe? I mean, that's an unanswerable question, obviously. But if we use logic, I think most of us would say it's all just in your head and it depends on your outlook on life. Like, if you're looking for good, you're going to find good. And if you're looking for the bad, you're going to find a whole lot of bad. Which brings me
Yes.
which brings me to my next question. Do you think that there is a such thing as balance in the universe? Or do you think that light is more than dark or dark is more than light?
There is a balance somewhere. It's just I don't know which way to find it. Like balance could be Christianity, it could be in Buddhism, uh Jewish, like across a lot of stuff, or it could just be people who say go into the middle of the forest and just sit on a rock or something like that.
Yeah.
Like it could be anywhere.
Yeah. I think that balance is a tricky word to define because I think, like we said earlier, things can be true for one person and not true for another. And I think that goes for balance. Like, what I think is a balance in my life between chaos and order could be completely chaotic to you. That balance could be totally different. You're like, no, 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 no. This is way too much of this and not enough of this. So I think that balance is relative. I think the entire universe is relative to each individual because we all experience everything so different from each other. For all the ways that we are the same, there are so many ways that we are different. And I think that's what leads people to anger and ignorance, especially in a religious space. Um, no beautiful segues exist on this channel, so I'm just going to jump to another question that's completely off topic from that. Um, what are your views on Wicca, witchcraft, and other pagan paths? Is that something you've ever heard about besides, from me, I guess, or someone else? Or is it something you've looked into? Is it something that you think is silly or stupid or weird? Or what's your thoughts on it?
I've only heard it from you, but I mean, it's like something I've thought about looking into. I just don't really have the desire to,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah, when I first promoted this video a few weeks ago, we had a conversation about how I was going to put your name in the picture. And of course, I called you Benjo, which is your nickname, and I called you an apathist. And that was a big back and forth conversation between us first before I used that word. For me, that purpose perfectly encompasses how I view your views. And that is, obviously stemming from the word apathy for those of you listening and watching. I do think that you come from like an apathetic place. And I think some people view apathy as a negative because they think it just means that you don't care. But I think that's too simple of a definition. I think you are, and I'm going to give you a chance to speak. Obviously, this is your video, but I think that you are at a place in your life now, and things can always change. The way we feel changes all the time. But I think you're at a place now where you don't have the answers to what comes after life, if anything, and if there is more to life than what we're seeing. And I think you're at a place right now where you're kind of comfortable with just not knowing. You're like, we just don't know. It's whatever. Do you think that's accurate or what?
Accurate to the T, really.
Yeah. Yeah. In the past, did you ever, or present or whatever, have you ever had a strong desire to try to like figure it out, so to speak, or no?
When I was younger, I was, I say I was kind of brainwashed by this person because I was like, Church of Christ is the only way. And like, I went to Baptist church with a schoolmate of mine, and I liked it there. Then that place turned weird. Again, no hate on any religion, just speaking my, how can I word it? Like my experiences. But it's like back then I was like, yes, God is the only way. Now I'm just like, it could be anything. Like, really, it can be anything. Like, who knows? My cats could be the way.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I'm just at the point where I'm just like, you know what? I'm just going to figure myself out, focus on my happiness, like my sanity and everything. And I'm fine with it. Like, everyone, well, not everyone, most people, they're like, well, why don't you go to church or something? Why don't you go do this or this on Sundays? Well, A, I work on Sundays, and a lot of people like really disapprove of that, but I had to make money somehow. And B, I just don't want to be around a lot of people. Like, to be honest, I just don't want to be around all those people. I'm like, okay, we're all doing this thing, and then as soon as we get out, we go say Cracker Barrel or uh, Mexican restaurant, that kind of stuff, and just don't leave a lot of tips, and then go get like drink a lot of alcohol.
Oh yeah. You touched on something that I don't know if it's the same outside of the South, but God, that is a thing. If you work in the service industry, especially, Sundays are the worst because you have this rush of people coming in after church. They're loud, they're very specific about what they want. There's always a problem with their food. And they're very
Mm-hmm.
disrespectful. And then they do not leave you a tip. And if they do, it's like insultingly low. Yeah, that is a thing. And it's like outside of the church, do you want to associate with people like that? And do you want to be associated as one of those people? You know? And
Right.
inside the church, and of course, we're speaking specifically about Protestant Christianity in the South. It's like, do you want to be even in that church where they're preaching, like, maybe about how anyone that's not like you is going to hell? So don't befriend and don't love people who are completely different, even though the Bible says otherwise. And then, also, they might just try to scare you because they preach a lot about burning in hell, not, being sinful. It's a predatory faith, in my opinion, the Southern Church at least. So I feel you there, and I think a lot of people, particularly in our generational circle, are getting to the point where they realize Christianity is just not the way for them because it refuses to change and adapt with people. And I think that religion isn't necessarily inherently bad, but it can be really restrictive when it has too much rules. You know, yes, rules can help a person uh, keep their life on track, so to speak, and keep their brain in like in an order. But it can also confine you where you think that you can't go past those rules, those lines that you make in your mind. And Christianity is in my opinion, is a horrible perpetrator of that. It doesn't allow its followers to grow and to think for themselves. You have to think whatever the preacher tells you to think. And that's a cult, first of all. That's the definition of a modern definition of a cult.
Yep.
um, yeah, it's not for me either, obviously. And like I said, I think a lot of people in our age group, it's not for them. And I think that's why a lot of churches around here, especially, I see that increasingly the people that go there are just people over the age of 65. And when those people die out, as morbid as that may sound, what's going to happen to the church? The church is probably going to die with it,
Mm-hmm.
because they're not really recruiting new members. It is what it is. So speaking of Christianity, And it's not just a Christian concept. Of course, the concepts of holiness and evil are across most all religions and faiths of the world. Do you believe in evil?
Now, there could be several different ways that could. Peachy. Sorry, my cats are wanting to love me, but yeah, it's like the definition of evil to me could be a lot of different ways. Like, yeah, good and evil, like just say Thanos in Endgame, like that could be evil. But then again, in Thanos' view, he was good. So just kind of using that for example, there's a lot of different things that could be say are evil across all like religions, where in other religions they say is good. So if I think something's bad, I guess that to me could be evil, but if like it works and it's not harming anyone, it can be good.
Hmm. So do you believe in like a universal evil? For example, it's a cliche, but Hitler, right? Do you believe that Hitler was evil, or do you think he was just a human being who did bad things?
I think on that case, in my views, he was evil. Even though he was thinking that he was right, look at all the damage that he really did cause. So to me, that is evil.
Yeah, I think that evil to me is an act that a person does that is so reprehensible that it transcends cultural taboos and boundaries. It's something that universally people can agree is not okay, which is rare, right? Few of those things exist. And I think that's why, for me, evil is such an important word because it describes something so heinous that no matter who you are, who you voted for, what God you worship, we can all agree that that was something really bad. So to me, that's evil. Do you believe in holiness?
Holiness, as in what?
Well, you can define holiness any way you want, but for me, holiness is when a person acts completely selfless, like when someone does something without any expectation of something in return. It's like the absence of selfishness to me. That is holiness. That's just me, though.
So basically, just doing something good without wanting something in return.
Which I think is rare because most people, your ego, expects something in return. Even if it's just
Hmm.
someone saying, "Oh my God, thank you so much. You saved my life." That still affects your ego. But what if you pulled someone from a burning building and they didn't say thank you? Would that hurt your feelings? So, like, what is an act of holiness and what is just an act of good?
Right. Like the burning building, yeah, that's a good example. Like if I did pull someone out of a burning building and they didn't say like thank you for saving my life or something like that, yeah, I'm gonna be like, oh well, okay, that rude, whatever, but like I know I did something good, so I could have just like walked by the building and be like, oh, there's someone screaming in there. Well, not my problem. Bye, and just walk on.
Yeah. And that would almost be an act of evil, in my opinion. But because I think that all human life is equal. But I guess most people, well, not most people, that's so rude to say. Some people don't think that all lives are equal. So, it's up for debate, I suppose. Do you believe, again, no great segues on this channel, I just jump around. But you know me in real life. You know me. Um, do you believe in Satan or the devil?
No, not in like, and not in that aspect. Like, yes, I do believe there is something out there. What I don't know, and that really. Sorry again, but no, it's like I believe there is something good out there, like some kind of higher power. But if there's a higher power, there also has to be a lower power that is the opposite of it to try and convince you to do bad things, to not follow the higher way, come down here with me.
I
type thing.
love that. I love that. That's awesome. Now we're getting into the exciting stuff for me. I love that. The idea that there is a higher power and a lower power. I like that you called it that too. That's like great. Aw. Tell
Mm.
everyone the cat's name.
This one is Chi Chi. She is my little motorboat. Let me. And that's baby Katie. She's passed out. She's my little stinker.
So
Like
cute.
she is, but she is the one that like she's my hyper cat. And let me get back around. This one is my comp cat.
So sweet. Um, a cat distraction is always welcome on this channel. Uh, so you said higher power and lower power. I love that. Um, you know, how do I say this? I feel like everything I ever wanted to know about the way your brain works was answered to me when you got the two tattoos you have on your wrists. Yeah. Um, you got two lightsabers.
Yeah, come on, turn around. Yep.
Yes. A Sith lightsaber and a Jedi lightsaber. Yes. I that summed up perfectly to me who you are as a person when you got that because you got something that represents good or holiness or positivity, but also something that represents the other side of that, the dark side. And the fact that you would get both to me tells me that you don't discount either force in the universe. It's like yin and yang. You have to have both for balance, right? That's what the yin yang tells us. There is light and there is dark. And correct me if I'm wrong, but to only stay in the light and focus on the light and live in the light seems just as toxic to me as a mentality as if you were to only stay in the dark. I think you have to be willing to walk the path of both, light and dark in your life and in your mind. Do you agree?
I agree. Which, like, a lot of people, when they see both, they're like, oh, you like Star Wars? I'm like, well, yeah, I like it because my late father, rest in peace, he, that was one thing we bonded over. And once I learned that there was a gray Jedi path, not just Sith or Jedi, like the gray Jedi, like, I don't know the code by heart, but excuse me. Um, like the gray Jedi, what they do is they do what they think is right, and what they think is wrong, they try to destroy it. So it's like they walk in the light and they also walk into the dark. And it's like you have to be able to me, you have to be able to fight all of that. Otherwise, like if you stay in the light too long, you won't know how to face the dark. If you stay in the dark too long, you won't know how to face the light. So I try to walk in the Jedi stance, the gray Jedi path, because I could use light and dark and just be myself.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's beautiful. Um, I think me especially in the past, I had a tendency to try to like run away from everything bad in my life. And once I got away from the bad things or the bad people, I like blocked it off from my memory and didn't want to think about it again, didn't want to go there again, didn't want to face that, right? Those emotions or whatever. And it wound up being mentally and emotionally detrimental to me, right? Because you've got to embrace everything that has happened to you, that is happening to you, and will happen to you, be it good or what we call bad. Do you think for you personally, the darker parts of your life have actually helped strengthen you now in the present, or do you think they are just a hindrance on you?
I believe that they have strengthened me just because I've had gone like through so much in my life. I think yes, people have gone through a whole lot worse, and some people probably go through anything. Like everything that I've gone through it's like I basically just learn from it and I just go with it because if I'm just like, oh well, that's not going to happen again, it's going to happen again. And if I just don't like try to learn from it, I'm just going to fall right back into the same hole over and over and over.
I'm so glad you said that. That's so true. And I think so many people struggle with that. Like they go through a bad experience, especially with with a spouse. And they're like, well, that was all on them. It was all them. They were horrible. They were a bad person. And then they immediately get with someone who's the exact same way. And you're like,
Dude, why did you say that?
we're not pointing fingers on the channel.
I'm not. That's my last ex, like severely. I
I
believe
know,
I've told you this.
I know. Believe me, I was thinking of certain people when I said this, but anywho, um, I hope they don't watch this channel because in the past that ex has watched my stuff and commented.
I don't think she does.
Okay, good. But anywho, yes, there are people who do that, and I think people struggle with taking responsibility a lot because when a relationship goes south, it is really easy to just put all the blame on one individual, and sometimes it is all on that one individual. But sometimes there are things that we did too, or that we did not do, that aided in the corrosion of a relationship, be that romantic or platonic or whatever. We all make mistakes. We all overstep our bounds, or we micromanage people, or whatever it is. But you have to be willing, I think, as two people to come together and say, yes, like, this happened and it was a mistake, or I hurt you in this way, or you hurt me in this way. Can we find forgiveness? And forgiveness leads me to the next question, because I think that forgiveness and the concept of forgiveness, the act of forgiveness, may be one of the most difficult things to embrace as a human being on the planet Earth. I think we have a hard time truly forgiving people. I think that's extremely evident right now in this whole like cancel culture, right? Someone could be
Hmm.
canceled for something that has been deemed insensitive to a group of people. Then that person may actually understand what they did. They may actually change their views and their relationships with said group. And if they do that, does that not warrant forgiveness? And if it does, when do we forgive someone and let them re-enter our lives in whatever way without constantly reminding them of the bad thing that they did? If they are forgiven, why are we constantly reminding them, but you did this bad thing once? That's not true forgiveness. So that's a lot to unpack. But what are your thoughts on forgiveness? Is forgiveness hard for you? Because it's hard for me.
For some people, it is hard, but there are some people where like something small, like me and my grandfather, we get into it every now and then over like religious stuff or political stuff. Like, I mean, we don't really say like I forgive you. We just silently agree to it and just move on. But forgiving people, like saying like I forgive you for this, it is really hard depending on what it is because like you said, cancel culture right now is a huge thing. There's so many different things out there where it's like, say you watch this show or watch this movie and it's not right in this religion or not right in this religion, or you say one thing like all like curse words and stuff like that that offend that person's like higher power. I'm not going to say God because I don't know if that's offensive for a lot of stuff, but like their higher power, like for Christianity, saying GD, that's a perfect example. Like that I know, like that can offend so many people, and then they'll probably be like, well, I forgive you for saying that, but please don't say that ever again. Like something like that, small, is an easy forgiveness, but something big is like saying or doing certain stuff over like a long period of time. Like it can hurt people really deep, and it's hard to really forgive because like someone can do something like, how can I say this? Like someone can do something like real terrible against their family and basically like shun their family off. That's hard to forgive. Like it's seriously hard to forgive. Like my father, like it took about 10 years, I want to say, because he did commit suicide. Like I will say, he did commit suicide.
I might have to just, I'll let you get back to that sensitive topic.
Mhm.
But just so you know, I might have to like boop, the S word because YouTube does not like it.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry.
It's okay.
I mean, like seriously, people like that's seriously not that. Like I will say, like if you do know people who say stuff like that, like call them, annoy them, like to in a way to be like, look, dude, like don't do this. Like get them help. My father needed it like bad. I didn't know about it, and after I learned that he did that, like it took 10 years for me to like personally forgive him. And it's like I have another uh something to remember him by. And like I think about him every now and then, like if he was here, what would he do? Type stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Um, so first off, thank you for sharing that with everyone because I think people who do have loved ones, especially parents that have done that, I think most people don't know how to reconcile those feelings or how to share them with others, and they might feel really alone. So thank you for sharing that.
of course.
Absolutely, you should definitely get to the point of where you think you're being annoying to people like that. I've had someone close to me uh, have that happen as well, and you think all the time, you're like, what could I have done more? Like you almost want to take on some of the blame for it. But shifting that, we're gonna go into we should start winding down a little bit. We're getting ish close to the time. So I'm gonna ask you some really stupid questions that
Is there really a stupid?
yeah, right, subjective. But I'm gonna ask you some really fun based questions to help wind us down. They're really silly, they're fun. Um, just something really lighthearted. And it's actually perfect timing coming after what we just spoke about. And that is, if you were some type of magic based person, would you call yourself a witch, a wizard, a warlock, a sorcerer, a druid? Like what would your magical title be?
I honestly don't even know.
I know it's really hard actually.
Hmm. It's like when you say that stuff, like I think D&D.
Yeah, of course, of course. It doesn't have to be like real life magic. Because growing up, I always loved the word warlock. I thought that sounded so cool. So I sometimes call myself a warlock. I love that word. Was there ever any words like that to you growing up, like in a mystical fantasy film or anything that just stuck out to you where you're like, that sounds awesome?
I'll say probably Jedi's.
I knew you were gonna say that. I was waiting for it. Like the minute I said all those words and you were like, I don't know, I was like, Jedi. Yeah, I figured that's perfect. That's perfect because they definitely are magical characters. We just don't use that word in Star Wars lore. But in some other universe, they would be considered magical. They'd be considered mages because of what they do, right? With the Force.
Yep.
Uh, that's awesome. Also, next question: do you know what your sign is? Your zodiac sign?
What, you mean like me being a Taurus?
Perfect. So you are a Taurus. That's awesome. So you're the bull. Would you say that you are a hard-headed person and stubborn?
All the time.
Out of the four elements, Aristotle's four elements: wind or air, wind, water, earth, and fire. Which one is your favorite?
Let's say it's a tie between water and fire.
Interesting, interesting. My favorite is water. I think a lot of people think that intuitively you would have picked earth because you're a Taurus and that's an earth sign, but you didn't, and I think that's very interesting. Uh, cool. So like if this was Avatar: The Last Airbender, I would want to be a waterbender. Would you want to be like an
Yeah.
earthbender?
I probably would just because the little bit that I did see of it, I was like, someone making a tidal wave or throwing fire at you. No, wall.
Yeah. And there's some earthbenders that become so strong that they can manipulate metal as well, because metal comes from the earth. And then there's some blood. Oh my God. There are some there are some water benders that become so powerful they can manipulate blood in the human body or whatever. It's really cool. And that's a very spiritual show too. If any of you have not watched Avatar: The Last Airbender and you want something fun and lighthearted, where you don't really have to think, watch Avatar, because you're going to be watching it and enjoying it just as this fun cartoon about people with powers. But then, like, through that first season, you get into that second one, you start realizing, am I watching a show about human emotions and struggle and darkness and forgiveness and hatred? Like, am I watching that deep of a show? And the answer is yes, you are, but in a cartoon. It's crazy. Let's see. What are your thoughts on angels? Do you think angels exist?
In a ways, but not like how most people around where we live will say, "Oh, that's an angel." Like I say something's watching over me, that could be considered an angel. And then there's something like lurking around like want me to do the bad stuff. That's
So,
what would you say, fallen angel?
oh, interesting. Interesting use of wordage there. Okay. I like that. I know I like that. Because my next question was going to be, do you believe in demons?
Yes.
Oh, okay. See, so with angels, you were like, yeah, I guess. With demons, you had an immediate yes. So why that answer?
Going back to my father, he had a lot of them to make him do what he did. Like to do what he did, and like he hit it like super well. Like I'm not going to go into all that detail, but he had so much in him to make him do what he did. There's demons out there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that it is much easier to see and experience the darkness of the universe than it is the light. That's just me. Sometimes it seems like there is more dark than light.
Hmm.
Um, why do you think that is? Why is the dark so easy for us to get into instead of the light? And why is it easy for us to stay in the dark than it is in the light? I feel like a lot of us are uncomfortable in the light for too long.
I agree. There is a lot of people who like stay in the light and they're just like, oh no, I don't like it just because like it's either everything is like going too good for them, like everything is easy for them, and the darkness is like, hey, come over here, like this is the dumb meme. Come to the dark side, we got cookies. But it's like the light is just like, how can I word it? The light is like you want success, you want to like make everything good for yourself. The dark is where like, hey, we have all this fun over here. Why don't you come over here? And people get so used to it, they're just like, I'm just going to stay in the dark.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I think that both sides have their perks. Definitely, it can be empowering to be in the dark side and to use the dark side to your advantage, like this dark mentality or whatever. But it can also be damaging, obviously. I think for me, personally, I got to a point where I was exposed to so much of like, to use a lot of Star Wars themes for this video. I was kind of born into the dark side from a very young age. I was born from darkness, from a dark act that happened. Um, and that's all I can say on YouTube, but I think you get the idea. I was born from a dark act and raised in a dark sided environment as well, and was told that I was a dark sided person from a very young age. So I was raised and nurtured in darkness. So for me, I got to a point coming into my early 20s where I realized that I had become so comfortable in the dark side that anything that seemed light side I rejected and hated. And for me, that even started to become the feeling of happiness. And that's when I knew I had a problem. Is I would get to the point where I started actually feeling good and I would reject the good, you know? So I think sometimes the darkness can be so alluring and comfortable that we don't know how to escape it, you know?
right.
Yeah. Do you see what I did there, by the way? I was like, let us go into some silly questions. And then I twisted it back around to some serious stuff. But we
Yeah, and
are.
you said,
Go ahead.
sorry, he's like, I was born in the darkness, like molded by it. I'm like, that's not Star Wars, that's Bane from Batman.
I thought that too. I thought that too. While I was saying it, I wanted to be like, I was born in the darkness. You simply lived in it. Like, yeah, I know. But I did it. Anywho, we are at the end of our time. It went by very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So winding down, you know, I come from a time when, if I wanted to explore something outside of the Church of Christ, I had to do it secretly and I had to do it smartly. We did not have the internet at my house. Certainly the internet was a thing. I'm talking like 2002, 2003. So yes, the internet was a thing, but if you weren't there, then you don't know. But the internet was not really a thing in 2002. You know what I mean? It was there, but it wasn't a thing. Like it wasn't what it is today. You would log on to the internet and nothing was really there. So I couldn't just Google whatever I wanted to know. I had to look in encyclopedias. But I had to do that at school in the school library during like my lunch. If I was really wanting to know what is witchcraft, what is Buddhism, what is atheism, I had to learn all of that through those books. And I bring that up because that is certainly one way. If you are a young person watching this and you are wondering about other things that your family might not condone, read about them in an encyclopedia. If you don't want the search history, or if you have firewalls on your phone and on your computer that you really can't get around, go back to the Stone Age. Look at books. um,
Yep.
yeah, and do it at school if you can't have the books in your home like I could. Uh, so Ben, what do you say to the people watching, particularly young people under 20, who have found this video and are watching it and thinking, well, I don't really know what I believe. I know I don't believe what my parents have taught me, but I don't know what I believe beyond that. And maybe they're thinking they're atheists, maybe they're agnostics, maybe they just don't know, maybe they don't care. They just know that they're not that. What do you say to those kids who are scared or nervous or unsure about embarking on that type of thought and ideology? What do you have to say to the young people who want to break away from the upbringing that they are in?
Well, like you said, do your research. Like, I mean, if you can, like, I'm not saying do this, But if you can, like, search, like, Google search, different religions, stuff like that, and you can do it without getting in serious trouble. Like, hey, don't get in trouble because that's a big thing. B, if all else, like you said, your school library, or even go to the public library. I'm sure they have like hundreds of encyclopedias. Like, if you don't feel comfortable where you're at, like, do a little research. Talk to other kids at your school. Like, if you do want religion, like, where it's like Christianity, like the several different types of that, Buddhism, uh, the Church of Satan, like, depending on where you're watching this, Jewish, like, any religion, do your research, talk to people who are in that. Like, I talked to someone that was in the Muslim religion. I talked to them for like 3 hours one day. I was like, wow, that's not what I was told. Like, I was always told, like, Muslim is they do this stuff, this stuff, this stuff, this stuff. They are like, this was back to Church of Christ. Like, Church of Christ was here. Muslim is like down here. Like, they're like the bad one. Talk to someone in other religions. Or if you're like me and you believe that there is someone, like, there's a higher power, like, just focus on yourself. If all else, focus on yourself. Make sure you're happy. Make sure you're not like down in the dumps. Like, so to say, like, if all else, just focus on yourself for a while. Like, who knows when me and you get older, like, you might be like, hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm going to this church, and you'll be shocked. Like, just focus on yourself. Find your true happiness.
That is probably the best advice I've ever had. I'm not kidding. Um, Focus on yourself. Worry about your own happiness first. You know, I think that's science advice is perfect advice. At the end of the day, don't worry about anyone else. Yourself first. Make sure you can help anybody else. Or think about something that doesn't really matter in your life right now. Like, if you are in the like woes of depression, who gives a bleep if God exists or not? You know, who cares? Why are we even thinking about it? Why are we talking about it? Why are we debating it? Can I just get a ham sandwich because I haven't eaten in 3 days? Like, you know? So I totally get that, and I second what he said. That's perfect. Worry about that first. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Everything else comes second. Like, come on. Great advice. Uh, oh, Timed it perfectly. Look at that. We are at the end of our time. Benjo, thank you so much for being here today and giving me your time, giving us all your time. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for inviting me on. I was happy to be on here. I have fun, really. Like, we started this, like, what, an hour ago or something like that?
Yeah. That was a quick hour too. It just zooms by. It really does. Yeah, I would love to have you back on the channel at some point. It doesn't have to be for another Mystic Meetings. It could be for something else. But I would love that. In fact, I'm just going to spitball ideas here out loud for a minute, and maybe people down below will tell me what they think. I would love to have you back to do like a reading for you, but like a public reading, right? Which I've never done on the channel at all. Readings are always done in private between me and a person that no one else on this channel sees, which you can book at alabamamagic.com, link below. And yeah, and anyway, I think it'd be great to show people, what a reading is like, what could, blah, 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 blah. Also, I think it'd be fun to do it for you because I've never done a reading for you in all the time we've known each other. That'd be exciting. So I'd love if you'd be up for that. Or also, I would like to do like astrology readings with you. Like, let's find out what your moon sign is, your rising sign. Let's find out your Venus sign because we need to know about your love life. And yeah, let's find out your Mercury sign because we need to know how you communicate with people. We need to figure it all out. So I would love that too. And I think that people would like it too because I think astrology is such a deep, deep, deep topic that a lot of people don't really know about. They just think that it's what month are you born and that's it. But it's so much
Yep.
more. So yes, please come back to the channel. Does that sound exciting to you or no?
I did not know there was a Venus one. I didn't know there's a Mercury one. I would love to do all that. Like,
Yeah.
read it on the channel.
Yes, of course. And of course, my friend Benjo would get all of these services for free. But I reiterate, if you're excited about any of that, please visit alabamamagic.com. You can book all kinds of services with me: tarot, oracle, runes. I throw chicken bones. I throw dice. I do runes. I do ogum. I am also a licensed and certified counselor. So if you just want to talk to someone that is legally bound to not share your information, I do that as well. I try to do it without insurance, although if you do have insurance, that's fine. But I do give you a flat rate if you don't have insurance, and it is hyper affordable when it comes to legal counseling. So check that below. And as always, thank you for watching. Follow me for more. And goodbye. If I can find the stop record button. Ben, again, thank you so much for being here while I look for that. Okay, I found it. And goodbye, everyone. And be safe, be well, and be informed. Goodbye.